Hey everyone, it's Mark, your firefighter, realtor, and out-of-state investor. Today I have a special guest, and I consider him a friend. Brian Adamson. He's an entrepreneur, real estate investor. But welcome to my show, Brian.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, tell my audience a little bit about yourself. We've connected, months ago. I reached out to you, and I just love the message that you're putting out there. But just give my audience a little bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, it's funny that you introduced yourself as the out-of-state investor, right? Because that's what I'm known as in the industry, the remote investor. Teach people all around the world, have been for years, how to invest remotely, set up the infrastructure, be successful in that way. Currently own over 100 commercial multifamily units remotely. Been married to my beautiful wife of almost 16 years. We have a soon-to-be 21-year-old daughter, which is crazy. And yeah, I've been investing, some almost 17 years now. And so I live here currently in Orlando, but I'm originally from Detroit, and that inadvertently became my market for the last 15 years or so. And so, I moved to Florida back in 2010, and it forced me to learn how to invest remotely, because although I had been investing in Detroit previously when I lived there, it was just a totally different dynamic when I moved away, particularly because when I first started, for my first 8 years, I was doing cash flow, right? Not for any other reason other than that was the only thing I knew how to do. It wasn't until I found a mentor, started making investments in myself, and, developed skill in the vein of wholesaling as well as fix and flip. So I had to kind of reinvent my business. I just so happened to still do it in that same market because I thought that it was an advantage, being that I'd already been investing there. But the piece that I didn't realize was that I didn't know nothing before. I was just being opportunistic, and I had some good fortune. I started in 2006. So from 2006 to 10, I bought over 20 rental properties. I was in college for a couple of those years. I was 24, 25, I think, at this time. And so anyway, saying that, I was just taking advantage of the market. The market had contracted. I wasn't jaded like most because I had just started in '06. So when everybody was bailing, I'm like, man, these properties that used to be 140,000, 20 grand now, like I'm gonna do more of that, right? And so but I found out after going to get a mentor and getting educated, man, I was making money by luck, quite honestly. I just so happened to be buying things affordable enough that they just made sense, right? But I didn't have my business set up the right way. I didn't have asset protection set up. I didn't have reserves set up. And so, that inadvertently cost me a couple $1,000,000 because I didn't know how to go out and raise capital. I got to a point where my properties needed work and I didn't have the money. And so I ended up selling them off in a down market, as opposed to had I been able to hold on to those things until the next market cycle. And so anyway, fast forward, when I got some mentorship, learned how to fix and flip, wholesale, and had to really learn my market from a totally different perspective than I ever looked at it before. And, took a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. But, by God's grace, was fortunate to have some resources come into my life that really helped me to see the blind spots that I had, to help to put better systems and processes and infrastructure in place. Because this, Mark, investing remotely, like, your team is everything, right? And the systems and the checks and balances that you have and the accountability measures that you have in place are paramount to your success. And I just didn't have a lot of that at first. I was trusting people, over trusting them. And I take full accountability of that, blind trust in a lot of ways, and lost $500,000 at one point, from doing so. And, when you scale your business quickly, I mean, that number extrapolates out pretty quick when you start to have deficiencies in your process. And, just been grateful to make millions of dollars on the other side of it, to help others build 6- and 7-figure businesses for themselves. And now I can sit here and talk to you about it.
Yeah, I love it. I came across you. I believe you were on One Rental at a time, Michael Zuber. You guys had a little out-of-state investing live going on. It was you and my other buddy, Millennial Mike. But that was my first introduction to you. And I love the message that you were putting out there. and you had so much great little nuggets of wisdom because you've been doing it for such a long time. Like my journey is fairly new. And I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, just how it seems that you made. But I felt like I made all these mistakes. Like, should I quit? Should I stop? But then hearing it from people that have been doing it for such a long time that also made mistakes, that made me feel a lot better. So why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because everybody you hear on social media is talking, they talk about passive income, real estate, and they make it seem so easy. But you just kind of touched on it also, like how much mistakes or how much difficulties you had in the beginning.
Sure. I think, well, I not that I think, I know the things that are costing us the most are those that we don't know. So for most people, we know what we know what we don't know, but we don't know what we don't know. And that's that dangerous area of where we pay the ignorance tax. And, you know, that's why I'm such a big proponent of mentorship. Not only do I offer it, but I invest in it. And I'm talking religiously because I like it's no reason to go out there and keep trying to bake the cake from scratch when somebody's already found the best recipe, put it in a box, and all you got to do is just go follow that recipe. Because to your point, there's still inherent challenges when you know what to do. So imagine not knowing what to do and you out there literally just trying to piecemeal this thing together. And it's a very expensive process, one of which stops more people's careers before they ever start. I was just fortunate enough that God blessed me with an innate ability to persevere, not quit. And I was so committed to true generational wealth for my family, for my daughter. And I just refused to give up. And at the very same time, I refused to keep doing the same things over and over again as well, right? Because that's the definition of insanity. And so, like yourself, I constantly look for individuals that have the success that I like to garner one day and glean from those people, because that is the most streamlined path to being successful.
I think I remember also in our first conversations together, it sounded like you had some initial success and then you kind of hit some road bumps and then you overcame that. Is that kind of how it went?
100%, 100%. It's so interesting how early success without the proper maturity can be the biggest demise for some of us, right? And God really used that time where I lost that money because I had success and because I had thought I had it figured out. He used that opportunity to humble me and really to humble me, right? Because had I kept going at the rate that I was going, and $500,000 sound like a big number, but it could have been much worse than that, quite honestly. Had I not had the opportunity to really hone in on the areas that I was weak at, that I didn't allow myself to see, because the success was blinding me from the areas and where I needed improvement. So you're 100% correct. I think for some of us, we need those tough times to really help us to solidify our entire being. Because what I've figured out is that it's not about making money. It's about who do you become in the process of making the money, so that you can have true success when you get the money. Because I've had seasons in life where I've been financially successful, but I've been empty on the inside. I wasn't fulfilled. And so on this path of whatever it is that we do, in this case, we're talking about real estate, is far more important that you develop as a person, and that you become the person that you need to become to best serve people, to best love people, to best steward over the opportunities. Because if you do those things, then you will have the true teamings of all the success when you start to have a financial success.
How did it all start for you though? So now you're talking about having this message, God, time and feeling emptiness at one point. But how did getting into real estate start for you? Was it always this vision of finding that happiness, time, freedom, or was it something else that got you started?
Yeah, it was excuse me. So I grew up inner city of Detroit, and my dad was a firefighter for 30 years. My mom was a cashier at the grocery store for 25 years. So I've been blessed my whole life to see what true work ethic looked like, right? At the very same time, since the age of 12, I knew that I had something in me that wanted more, right? So I got my first job sweeping up here in a barbershop at 12. I always just liked having my own money. I had an affinity for making money. And I would work, you know, Boys and Girls Club, shoe store. I did all of those things, but I just had an appetite for more. And proximity is so important. Excuse me, just a second, Mark.
No, no problem.
Excuse me. Proximity is so important because oftentimes we can only emulate those things that we see. And, you know, for me, it was either work a job, which I felt like wasn't getting me the kind of payoff that I wanted, or the people that I thought had the true success were the guys in the streets, right? Hustling and making money that way. And so, you know, I emulated that lifestyle as a late teen and found myself looking at a 4 to 10-year felony my senior year in high school. I was on my way to college, had a full ride academic scholarship. And as one could imagine, I was a bit distracted, graduating, having my freedom in limbo. And then all at the same time, I met my now wife, then girlfriend, got her pregnant. So this transition from turning 17 to 18 was like, you know, fighting for my freedom, flunking out of college on a full ride academic scholarship, you know, left my mom's house, baby on the way. It was just crazy. And that's when I found Christ, you know, during that time at one of my lowest points in my life, I would say. And man, he just started doing things in me, through me, for me. And you know, by God's grace, got on the other side of all of that turmoil. Our daughter has turned out phenomenal, heading to become a doctor of chiropractic, got rematriculated back into college. And there is when my junior year, I found real estate, or it found me, I should say. It was a buddy of mine, 20 years my senior, who was flipping houses at the time. I didn't understand what it meant, but he said, look, I got these buyers, I renovate these properties, I sell them to them, but they don't have the money sometimes for the down payment. So I started using my refund checks in college to gift them their down payment. And then when he sold them the house on a stated income loan, then he would give me a return on my investment. And that's literally, I got started from a $6,000-7,000 refund check in 2006 and had no idea that it would turn into this multi-million-dollar empire today.
That's that's an awesome story. I mean, I hear even like you know, Jaspreet Singh. I don't know if you follow him on social media, but he talks about like the Detroit market, and I think he was going to college there, and that's where he started his real estate. And yeah, like he was saying, like, you know, back like you're saying when the housing market crashed, you know, your people are buying homes for like $10,000, $20,000, and it was just amazing what you could get back then. But at the same time, a lot of people were avoiding the market because it was crashing. So it took a lot of courage for you to jump in at that time. And, you know, let's kind of talk about that real quick. You know, people seeing a lot of things happening in the economy right now, and they're trying to relate it to the same things that happened back in like 2008. What's your thoughts on that?
I think for most people, if they didn't really experience it during that time, it's easy to make the parallel only because it just seemed like it makes sense, but it's two totally different worlds that we're living in right now. The lending, the oversight of the lending market today is like so robust in comparison to what was going on back then. I mean, I forget the percentage of stated income loans that were originated, but those coupled with ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, that had to be 70% of the marketplace. So wonder why we defaulted at the rates that we did. You know, I mean, even myself, I was in college as a junior buying rental properties on a stated income loan. You know what I mean? And I was a full-time college student. So yeah, it was out of control, and we're nowhere near that kind of climate today as we were then. Now, are we in a recession? Certainly, it's been multiple quarters of, you know, negative GDP. But at the very same time, we have a housing shortage issue where there was more of a, we had an excess of inventory back in, you know, the 2008 era. And so all that being said, there's just so many conditions that will have to be met that don't exist today in order for this to mirror then. and we're not there. And I think for anybody that's trying to time the market, or they listen to use Zuber's vernacular, they listen to the Crash Bros. Like it's sensational, but that's all it is at best. Like if you're somebody that wants to use real estate investing as a tool to retire yourself from work, as I have, at 35 years old, many years ago, or to just, create generational wealth, whatever the case is, you need to stop delaying it. The sooner you start, the better off you'll be, because there's not some magic wave that's happening that you need to catch. The wave is happening every single day, and you just need to be on the right side of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of tell people too, it's kind of like, surfing or getting in the ocean, right? You can't catch these waves if you're not in the water. You can't do
That's right.
anything if sitting on the beach and looking at all these beautiful waves. You have to actually be in there. And there may be waves that you're not going to get on, but you have to actually be in the ocean to catch these waves. But I kind of want to talk about, you kind of touched on it a little earlier about your mentorship. So, and we talked about how the market is changing. People are, kind of maybe scared, the crash bros. So are you telling your students not to buy right now? How are you handling this situation with your students?
Yeah. So what we do, so we have weekly calls, okay, inside of our mentorship program. And in that, we're always talking about the current situation in the market. And so holistically, we've got different ways in which we underwrite our deals. So if it's a cash flow deal, we got certain minimum thresholds that we look at for return on investment to insulate us from whatever the market may do. Same is true with our fix and flips. And then, wholesale is a little more arbitrary. But the point is, we're constantly making adjustments to look at different parameters like days on market in the said marketplace, looking at the median home price, to make sure we stay below that. And so we've got some like go, no go gauges that we're constantly looking at and making adjustments, to make sure that while we go out and we purchase, that we're mitigating as much as our risks as possible, right? I just had a student, she texted me yesterday, shout out to Jen. She just did her first flip remotely from Orlando to Georgia. She got it on and off the market in 37 days. It closed yesterday, made $100,000, right? So it's,
Nice.
yeah, it's opportunities to be had. It's just about, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And so we just take a really deep dive in that, because I believe, Mark, the market is saturated with coaches that are providing content, but I got 17 years of context. And so that's why we've been so successful in our program, is because I've been able to really pour into my students based on practical application for the last 17 years. And so, nothing new there's nothing new under the sun, right? And so as long as you have somebody like that in your corner that can help you be proactive and predictive, then I mean, it's the market is beautiful right now.
You kind of answered it maybe a little bit, but I was going to ask, so do you only help people invest in Detroit, or you just kind of give them the blueprint how to invest in any market out of state?
Oh yeah, any market, any market. Like my daughter bought her first investment property from Florida to Connecticut. We've got students in Denmark that have invested in Ohio. We're global, right? And so yeah, no, the framework works in any market. I actually, I mean, not that I talk to students against Detroit, but I definitely don't, right? Because I'm teaching them to do exactly what I do. So I don't want them crowding my market, right? So yeah, no, and again, I'm saying that tongue in cheek. They could come there as I'm a abundant thinker. I'm not a scarcity guy, but no, I don't teach them to come into my market. I teach them how to go into any market that they want to.
So if you had a person reach out to you and was interested, what would you probably tell them is kind of the most important person on the team, or what would be your number one advice that you would give them?
Well, to specify, interested in what?
Getting started in investing, not in their backyard, like investing
Okay,
remotely or out of state.
got it. I thought that. I just wanted to make sure I answered the question appropriately. So The first thing that I would tell them is to get clear on their goal. Okay. It's never the sexy answer they want to hear, but the reason that is so important is because based on whatever their goal is, that's going to determine which investment strategy they should use. For instance, if they wanted to retire from work in the next 24 months, then I would recommend that they look at cash flowing assets to help to supplement their income on a residual basis to help cover their monthly expenditure, right? Because when you do active income like flipping and wholesaling, while they're great chunks of money, you're only as good as your next check, right? You got to go and produce that all over again, as opposed to in cash flow, you place the tenant, the idea is that they pay you continuously over time, right? So with that being said, though, depending on which way they go, active or passive, well, that market may be more advantageous for one strategy versus the other. So as an example, and I haven't looked at this in a couple of years, but at one point, Memphis, Tennessee was a market that holistically was like 70% renters, 30% homeowners. So without zooming into a specific zip code, let's just say you wanted to go to Memphis as a general consensus to flip houses. All these things are cheap. I want to flip houses. Well, if only 30% of the market were homeowners, then who's your buyer, right? But 70% of that market are renters. So then maybe that's a great market to go into to buy cash flow, right? And so we have different tools and analysis that we do in said marketplace, but it all starts from what's the goal, because the goal would dictate the strategy and the strategy would dictate what market you should go into.
I love it. Great information right there. I mean, I'm glad I got started in investing remotely, and I tell everyone I've made a lot of mistakes, and I definitely wish I came across you a lot sooner in my journey, or just someone that was doing it ahead of me. I mean, I did have a friend who was investing, but he was fairly on the new side also. But I highly recommend anyone on the fence that wants to get started, reach out to Brian, reach out to myself, but reach out to people that are doing it. And everyone is willing to answer questions and help and give you great information. And like I said, when I saw you on Zuber's thing with Millennial Mike on remote investing, there were so much things I picked up, and there was a lot of things that I enjoyed when you were talking about like property management and working with your property manager, as far as like I forget exactly what it was, but I think it was something along the lines, if you have no news, it's good news, but bad if you have bad news. Hey, okay, now we know we have a problem, but now let's deal with it. Can you kind of talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, I love that, Mark. Yeah, I got this philosophy that and actually it's not even a philosophy, it's more of a creed that we live by. Okay. And that is, no news is bad news is good news is great news. And the reason that is the worst thing that could ever happen to you as a business owner is allowing someone to handcuff or cripple you in your business by not giving you the news that you need to make a decision, right? To me, that's like being held hostage in your business. Bad news is welcome because there's always a solution to a problem. So to me, bad news is good news, right? And if you're a solution-oriented person, and then good news is great news, because, Mark, as business owners, very seldom do we just get a lot of good news. And when it does, it's great, right? So
Yeah.
We spend more of our time dealing with good news that is really bad news, right? That we're being solution-oriented, figuring out how to untie knots in order to have some good days, right? But that's the truth of it. And, I appreciate, when we spoke offline, that you want to bring awareness to people that, yes, this business will change your life, but it comes with a lot of work. It comes with some sleepless nights. But the truth is, pick your heart, right? Because I can tell you, before leaving corporate America, going to work every day was hard. And not necessarily that the work I was doing was hard, the idea that I had to do it. The idea that I had to be there at a certain time, the idea that I had to ask somebody to when to go on vacation, the idea that I had to tell somebody I had a doctor's appointment, like that for me my worst day in business is better than my best day at work for that very reason. You like it. It's not that I'm above it. It's not that if circumstances presented themselves, I wouldn't go back if I had to support my family and make a means. But my God, as much as I can do to prevent that ever from happening in life, that's my modus operandi, because you're going to have a hard. So I'd rather have a hard that I'm not capped. I don't have a ceiling. I can grow this thing as big as I want to grow it. You know, I don't have to ask for permission if I need to take care of something. You know, like for me, that's true wealth and success.
Yeah. So what you're kind of saying too is what we see on your social media feeds right now is not how it was in the beginning when you started your journey.
No, it was not.
Yeah.
It was not.
But go follow him, go check it out. I mean, he's doing amazing things. But I also want to kind of touch on, I think you touched on it a bit earlier about your daughter getting her first investment property. Did you kind of have to twist her arm to go down this route, or did she kind of just pick it up watching what you were doing?
So interesting, man. You got great questions, Mark. So I started this business when she was, I guess, probably 5 or something. And for all those years, she just never had interest in it, like ever. And you know, in her teenage years, I started to kind of lean on her a little bit, but she was so distracted with dance and acting and all these things she was doing. And then finally, December of 2020, she was home during COVID. And she said, she had been seen at that time. I started doing these virtual seminars, and she'd be at home, so she was able to participate. She even started to host a couple of them, and I think that piqued her interest more than anything. And so she came to me December 2020, and she said, "Hey, Dad, can you teach me how to wholesale?" And I said, I could do you one better, actually. I said, at this time we had like this course. It was $997. I said the course is going to be on sale for $500 in a couple of weeks for Christmas. And she looked at me like I had 4 heads. She was like, "Excuse me?" I said, "Yeah, the course is going to be on sale and I'm giving you the inside scoop since your family. Telling you it's going to be available in 2 weeks for 50% off." And she was like, "I don't get it." I said, "Well, let me explain. When people pay, they pay attention. And when you make that investment in yourself, then I will take you serious because you've shown me you taking yourself serious. Secondly, this 14 years that I've been running around in the background doing all this stuff, I've been actually putting together a pragmatic, practical, digestible, actionable process so that if you go and get that content, when you and I talk, we're going to have a more productive conversation, as opposed to you randomly just asking me questions, popping in and out of my office. You're going to have success sooner by following this system. And then I give you pro bono mentorship. So that's what I did. And 60 days later, less than 60 days later, she had her first deal. It was a wholesale deal in Connecticut, 16-unit condo deal. She had locked it up, found a buyer. She was gonna make like 40 grand on this deal on the wholesale, but the buyer ended up, their financing fell through 2 days before closing. Fast forward 3 months later, she found this other single family property and ended up, you know, raising the capital for it. You know, she did a $40,000 renovation on her own in Connecticut, because by this time she went back to college up there. And then after that, she rented it out. She's been making $1,000 net positive cash flow since she was 19 years old, man.
Well, she's way ahead of the game. I mean, I wish, and I'm sure you, same thing. Actually, you started at a young
I
age. I
started
wish,
at 22.
yeah.
She beat me at 18, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I started a long time ago. I mean, I made tons of mistakes. I mean, and I tell everyone, like, I was goofing around, you know, like I said, I was just working for my W-2, my pension. And like I talked about how I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad book a long time ago, and it didn't make any sense to me. And I didn't get a chance to bring this up to you, so I'm not sure if you're able to answer it, because I know you're super busy, so we didn't get to connect a little bit before this. But has there been any book or like podcasts that has really kind of helped you along this journey?
Yeah, I'm the Bible, number one. My faith has been everything in this journey, quite honestly. That has been the thing that's bolstered me most than anything intellectual property, quote unquote, right, that I could have read. Rich Dad Poor Dad was a game changer for me. I didn't read that book until I was in my early 30s, quite honestly. I've never been a reader, Mark, even all through, I mean, you know, going through college, graduating, cum laude. Like I've never completed a book. Like I've always been great at having a photographic memory. I've been always good at retention from context, but I never completed. Rich Dad Poor Dad may have been the first book that I actually completed, and so which is kind of crazy. But what I figured out was my mind, I'm a visionary, so my mind is always working. So when I read, it's like I read it, I could be 10 pages in. I'm like, what did I just read? So it's not a good enough excuse to just say I don't like to read. So I found I read with my ears. Audiobooks work better for me. And so, yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad was a game changer for me to shift. I think it's great for everyone because it shifts your perspective for the first time for most of us in our lives. And that was a game changer. What's another one? The Life in There, right? By Sean McCloskey, I think it is. The Life in There just really recenters what success is, right? He was a guy who was fortunate to become wealthy and, you know, live debt free and financially free and bless others like in an amazing way. Like this is a really good book. It's called The Life in There. It gives you perspective on what are we doing this for in the grand scheme, right? Of course, you know, what's the long read?
Well, let's kind of touch on that real quick. What is the end goal for you? You talk about the life, like what is the kind of the ultimate end for you? Or are you trying to build a portfolio of so many properties? Like, what is the end goal?
Man, that's a great question too. I used to think it was go get 2,000 doors, blah blah blah. That's somebody else's thing, right? For me, it's not a door count. It's not a. It's an appetite. It's an appetite and a purpose driven thing for me at this point. So, like for instance, 2024, I want to buy my first hotel. Never bought that asset class before, but at some point, I never bought commercial multifamily. So for me, it's four things that you need to do in anything you want to be successful in. Have a desire, then get educated, become a practitioner, and you do that long enough, you get 10,000 hours and be an expert. So I applied that to every aspect of my life, and it's never failed. Okay, so that's one thing. 2025, I got on my plan to start doing mergers and acquisitions. I like to start buying businesses. 2028, maybe television. Like so for me, it's it's a constant evolution based off of appetite. I'm in the business of serving people, right? And whatever I do is always going to be aligned with that. And I'm gonna make as much money as God is willing to give me to do His will and purpose while I'm here. You know, it's bigger than me. I love, like, until you walk past a janitor and gave him $1,000, right? Like until you've done things like that, you haven't really experienced the true joy of money. And so for me, I want to be in that position to help people in all walks of life, you know. And so yeah, so that's the part that drives me more about the money than any of it, to be honest, Mark.
And I believe you. I mean, so let's talk about that. Helping people, your mentorship, your course. Like if someone's going to reach out to you, what can they expect to get from it?
I over deliver. You know, I know that's a bold statement, but I know it's true. You know, and largely in part, if I got to be completely honest, is because I know that every good and perfect gift comes from Him. And I feel like if He put me in contact with you, then I have a responsibility to best steward over that relationship, you know? And so I don't take it lightly. I also don't do business with everybody for that reason too, because I want to make sure that I've got people who are far beyond able-bodied. I want people that are committed, and where the commitment becomes a decision. And when you make a decision, then that has an anatomy. And I like working with those type of individuals because they're clear about what they want in life, and they're going to actually take the knowledge that I give them and apply it, because knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. And I want to see people change their life through coming in contact with me. And it's a very serious thing. So what they can expect is somebody that's coming alongside them as their navigation system, but they're going to drive the car. But I'm gonna show you every detour. I'm gonna show you every pothole to avoid, so that you can get to your destination safer, faster, more efficient, and have the success sooner without having to do all of the stuff that exists, that will be detrimental to that success.
So where can people find you? And if they want to join your mentorship, your course, where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, you can find me at Brian Adamson Real Estate on YouTube. Okay, Brian Adamson Official on Instagram and everywhere else. Please make sure you follow me. I put out community content every single day. Mark can attest to that. And not just like fluff. I put out stuff that you can. I mean, is that accurate, Mark? Like
It's very helpful information. It's real information. It's none of this. It's easy. It's none of this that, getting into real estate is passive. He talks about how to get started, how to do it. And he breaks down. Go check out his YouTube channel. He has amazing videos out there talking about, wholesaling, fix and flipping, and projects that he's actually working on.
Yeah, thank you, man. And then also I would love for you to join me on one of our 5-day challenges. It's where you get to spend 5 days with me. Okay. 2 hours each day of the 5 days. Now, the first hour of each day in VIP, you get to ask me rapid fire questions. The same way Mark and I having a conversation, you'll be able to do that as well, for 1 hour each day. And then on day one, I teach you the difference between traditional and remote investing, okay, and how you can really leverage that. Day two, I go over the 7-figure formula, right? So I teach you how you can go out and build a 7-figure business in 12 months, right? I know it sounds crazy, but it just is. Day three, I teach you about the psychology of becoming an OPM magnet, right? How to attract other people's money. Forget raising it, right? Like how to even attract other people's money, right? So we get into the psychology of that. And then day four, the time freedom cash flow formula. So how to buy your time back through real estate investing and using other people's money. And then on day five, we put together a customized investment plan just for you, because everybody's goals are unique, right? We're in different stages of life. Like for me, in the last 24 months, I haven't entertained anything other than multifamily units. Now that's pretty bold for a guy that was in single family for 14 years, but that's what I'm saying. My goals in the season in life are different. And so yours are going to be different. And so on day 5 of the challenge, we put together a customized investment plan for you to go out and take action on. And yeah, and you can find that at www.iflipchallenge.com. Okay.
Yeah, I have all the links below, but if not, just reach out to him so you can get that call and hear like the best voice on YouTube and social media. As Michael Zuper always says, you have the best voice out there, so just do that. If you don't join, just have these conversations. You can hear that voice.
Appreciate you, man.
Well, I'm glad we were able to find time. I know it took a while for us to connect.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't get to shoot you some questions before this, but maybe you are able to answer this final question for me. So as you can see all the superheroes in the background, for me, I like to ask my guests, what is the one superpower that you may have that has helped you in this journey?
Discernment. I thank God every day. My gift and level of discernment is different, and it's really helped me in all facets of life, and especially in business.
I love it. That's a great way to end this. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Maybe we'll talk a bit off camera after this, but thanks for coming out, and we'll talk again, Brian.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it, man. Great questions today too, by the way.
All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.